We'll find out. I was worried about the flooding. You know, getting wet now.
Yeah.
You can't stop building that there. It's a lot of houses at 42.
Yeah.
What's that?
We don't have to wait.
No,
I don't. Thanks for getting them. Right up on it. Not just a person's car. My dad always. My Christmas card. Start hoping.
I'd like to call to order the City of North Ridgeville Planning Commission meeting for November 8th, 2022. Everyone, please stand for the pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Members of the board, Thompson, Ali, Rothman,
Here.
Swallow. Here. Havens.
Here.
Smollett.
Here.
Members of the administration, Chief Building Official Person,
Here.
Assistant Law Director Morgan. Here. Planning and Economic Development Director Lieber. Here. Assistant City Engineer Evanson. Here.
Has everyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes from October 11th, 2022? Is there any changes at this time? Hearing none, those minutes shall stand. Madam Secretary, is there any correspondence brought to the board today? Okay. We're ready for the first application.
Hampton Place, Phase 7, North Ridgeville, Ohio, 44039, EPN 07000290000057. Applicant, Valori Properties Incorporated, 23550 Center Ridge Road, Westlake, Ohio, 44145. Proposal consists of 18 cluster lots and 24 single-family lots, 42 lots total for Phase 7, Hampton Place subdivision. Property is zoned R1. Chief Building Official Person's comments. Hampton Place subdivision Phase 7 is 42 lots, 18 cluster family lots, and 24 single family lots. Hampton Place subdivision Phase 7 has 42 lots on 15.6529 total acres with a density of 2.68. 42 total lots divided by 15.6529 total acres equals 2.68. Hampton Place subdivision Phase 7 has 13.6% open space, 2.1407 open space divided by 105.6529 total acres equals 0.136. Open space totals on page 3 do not match open space totals given on pages 1 and 4. Assistant City Engineer's comments. Add current 100-year floodplain to plat. Define the drainage easement details on the plat. A letter of credit or bond needs to be provided for the financial security instead of the submitted line of credit.
Is there someone in the audience who would like to present this project? Up there, state your name and address for the record and just tell us a little bit about your project. Yeah.
My name is Jason Fishbach, and I represent Valori Properties tonight. I'm a project manager for the project over there. I oversee what's been going on, so I'm here in place of Tony Valori, who actually owns the company.
And this is just another phase of the project.
It is, yeah. It's the 7th phase out of 8 total.
Does any of the commission members have any questions or comments?
Mr. President, question I have on Janie Lane, eastern, it looks like the eastern edge is dead end. Does that mean that you're going to continue another project on the road?
That's where phase 8 would come into play down the
I guess I have a question in regards to sublot 340 and sublot 341. They're shown in the FEMA flood map at the 100-year zone. Do you know what elevation that was from the firm maps? And where the proposed elevation of the finished floor is for the proposed lots?
The finished floor, I would not know. At this time, I wouldn't know that. That would be Ryan Holmes would have that information. But Chris may be able to give us a little information on that.
Chris Howard with Brand Hall Engineering Surveying.
Sorry, do you mind stating your name?
Oh, sure.
This for the record.
Chris Howard, Brand Hall Engineering Surveying, 801 Moore Road, Avon, Ohio. The floodplain is a zone A. We have submitted to FEMA for a letter of map revision. We've done a study to determine what the base flood elevation is through there. Zone A is undetermined through that whole corridor. So we've submitted a study to FEMA to justify where the floodplain is. That's been provided to engineering. So right now we're just showing where the zone A is, but the BFE will be outside. It'll be within the ditch line. We're waiting on FEMA approval for that. On the grading plan, we do have finished grades on all the units. And they are above the BFE.
Thank you. All right, is there any questions or comments from the administration?
Yes, Mr. Chair, as I had included in my report, I do have some concerns about those two sublots that you pointed out. You know, it might be possible to construct a dwelling within a floodplain subject to certain requirements, but from a planning standpoint, you know, preserving sensitive environmental areas, protecting future residents from flooding, and also protecting our city from complaints from future residents about flooding and use of city services. I think all to me, I recommend that those, until the floodplain delineation occurs, if they were to be removed, maybe they could be constructed, but I would not recommend approval of those lots as part of this plan.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, go ahead.
By filling in that area to remove those two lots from the flood zone, how many properties outside of the subdivision are we putting in the flood zone that's going to be required to pay flood insurance?
Well, when we do a flood study to meet FEMA's requirements, we study all the way from the French Creek all the way to Stony Ridge. So whatever the study is, because it's a zone A, it's undetermined. So FEMA will review that, but there are other properties that will be because it's an unstudied area.
Because you are putting fill in this area.
But the fill doesn't impact it. The base flood elevation was within the ditch line.
Have you done a no-rise certificate?
We have a no rise certificate for those two lots. Correct.
Have you provided that to the engineering
It
department?
was provided before, but if not, we can make sure they have it.
I don't know that we have a copy.
Okay. I thought I gave it to Dan, so. But, so the study shows it's within the ditch line. It's not even on the property. I mean, it's top of the ditch. So it's confined within it.
So what this discussion is the federal government came and they made some modeling and they sort of predict where the 100-year flood elevation is. And what we refer to as a 100-year flood elevation is a certain rain event that happens, you know, once a 1% chance. And so what they're saying is they did an engineering analysis, which that finished floor elevation of structure will be outside that 100-year. And then in order to do that, they have to make a revision to the federal government. And then that will take them out of the federal flood insurance program, if approved. So just to make sure everyone's on the same page and understands it, because it is pretty complicated. You're dealing with the federal government.
And also, usually on a plat, you don't show the floodplain limits because it's a zone A, it's undetermined. But I think the developer is willing to say those two lots will not be built on until FEMA agrees with the study. So those two sublots will just not be built until approval from FEMA.
Chair,
Yes.
You don't have your typical information that you have requested from other subdivision phases as to what the density is at this point for the total subdivision, what the open space is at the point for the total subdivision, average front setback to single family lots, on average lot width for single family lots, and the building department has requested that twice from Valori and you only got partial information on page 1. I mean, that's your call. It's something you asked for. I'm just reminding you that it hasn't been submitted as you have requested in the past.
I thought the planning and economic development director went through and calculated where we're at as far as the overall plan.
The sheet 6 of 35, I just based it on the information that's in the lot summary on sheet 6 of 5. There's the, it goes by phase, and then it adds up the number of units. It talks about the total acreage. So my report just had a little summary of what's here on the sheet. And if there's more that's required, like the average setbacks that might not be on here, I'm just not as familiar with all the things that the commission might have looked at in the past. It does have density and open space, but it doesn't have some of those other things
Entire
that-
subdivision.
for the entire subdivision, yeah, by phase, broken out by phase and then added.
Okay, and then I guess as developer have any questions or comments in regards to setback?
So the setbacks are the same as the previous phases, they're all shown on the plat.
Okay,
Nothing's different, it's matching the previous phases, so. But that's shown on the plat and the plans,
So what's the average
was the average.
for the single family lots? You get to the end of the subdivision, that has to be compliant with the city ordinance.
Correct.
But the planning commission has been asking for a breakdown phase by phase.
Which we provided on sheet 6, it shows a breakdown of every phase, it shows cluster and residential.
Cluster doesn't factor into it, it's just the single family.
And that's shown on there too, it gives a breakdown of every phase, every unit,
So what is the average then?
the average width.
No, the average front setback and the average width of the single family lots, yes, sir.
The
Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
What I'm looking at here, the phase 7 breakdown shows front yard setback, an average of 39 feet, 35 feet.
For which phase?
Big
Phase
seven.
7,
They tell you the average for the whole subdivision to date.
no, it just has the information for this phase.
And again, this is something that you, planning commission, has requested in the past, and I'm just following through with your past request.
I don't actually remember, I always remember density being an issue, I honestly don't remember setbacks. Because a
Yeah.
setback's established by, there's a certain minimum for a
There's
buildable
also an
lot.
average required for the whole subdivision, and your comments were you didn't want to get to the last phase and find out that it wasn't compliant.
Right. So is the average above the minimum? I don't, I don't know how that,
If the average for the whole subdivision is 39, that's above the minimum right now.
so some could be below the minimum? I guess I'm confused on that legislate, like,
Well, you have a range of 30 to 40 feet. The average is 35. There's. Commissioner Swallow has said that their average is 39, so that meets the minimum requirement. Or the average requirement that you're required. You have to have that at the final as
Right,
well.
it says actually 35. Yeah, I don't know that we've ever looked at that outside of each phase. I know that we've asked the question about density
Right.
and open space overall, so that when we got to the end of a development, that phase isn't
a field.
right.
But you also have average lot width and you also have average setback for single family lots only, not cluster lots. That's part of the ordinance. And forgive me if I misquoted, but I thought you'd asked for that in the past.
I think it's typically shown on the plans in the past where this doesn't have it for the individual.
So I was showing from setback, but as a rule of reference, you wanted to know where you stood at this point in the subdivision.
Okay, is there any further comments from the administration?
Mr. Chair, just
Go
one
ahead.
question, to Mr. Howard. So Are you gonna delineate the 100-year, existing 100-year floodplain on the plan or? No.
Typically, you don't show a floodplain on a plat, because if you, right now it's a zone A.
Okay.
You'd have to go back and amend it once FEMA agreed with where the floodplain is, so you have to refile that plat, so typically you don't show the floodplain on a plat. So no, I would say you shouldn't show it,
I just have concerns if it isn't approved,
if what,
if FEMA doesn't approve the request.
well. I feel pretty confident, obviously, because it's submitted to FEMA, obviously, it's their staying, but where the zone A is, I don't believe that's true. So.
Thank you. At this time, is there any questions or comments from the general public? If so, please come to the podium, state your name and address for record.
Joseph Smith, 6028 on Melvin. What are these two lots that they're talking about, the concern about building? Or,
Where they are?
yeah,
See Dow Road Drive, one on the left. Yeah, so you see where, all right, go down, sub lot 340 and 341.
They're the last two lots that are
On the dead
delineated, like right where you were pointing your finger.
Yep.
Yep, those
And then-
two, they're across from each other.
Yeah, see that big black line? That big
Okay.
black line is the one we're talking about.
but where's 83 at on this?
To the right.
This is 83 here.
Or no, you don't, it's not on the map. It's farther over to the right. You don't see it on that map.
Yeah, there's a mass, yeah, like. Well, that was a good one because it showed you where you were in relationship to Stony Ridge.
There's Stony Ridge.
Yeah, so this is off of Stony Ridge. It hasn't come all the way to the east yet.
So where's 83 at?
83 is like near the window, it's near the window. Where it would be, yeah,
Somewhere,
correct.
yes.
I'm just trying to figure out where this is actually going in. So, and it's probably.
yeah, see where that little block is? Basically in between Stony Ridge and 83.
Right.
Yep. But all the development's been off the Stony Ridge. It hasn't made it to 83 yet for this.
This part is kind of on 83.
No, this is off, basically this is off the Stony Ridge.
All right, so there's gonna be another place up like in between here.
I would assume, I don't know if the developer wants to chime in on.
Yeah, that's the intention. To have another phase, that would go from phase 7 where we're talking about now,
Yeah. Is that-
almost to 83.
Yeah, I did right on 83. So where's this development? This phase right now at?
7, so it would be a while before.
So this is like in the woods and stuff?
Yeah, and then that open soybean field that they just cut down.
Okay.
So that would be
And
part
then
of
there's
it.
gonna be another phase 8 is to the north of this.
Yeah, but unfortunately, this meeting is for this phase up here. I mean, it could be 2 or 3, the developer doesn't know how many phases. it would
I
be.
know, I just, it's basically the same in my backyard.
Not at all.
Okay. It's, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the general public? Yes, go ahead.
Dennis Blue, 6405, the Neat Drive, North Ridgeville, Ohio. Our community has a lot of money, already deal with a lot of the things with all those things that high water and flooding brings. So I've heard some comments this evening about, not quite sure.
Could we provide him the attention you deserve?
I'm having a hard time
I'm sorry.
listening to him, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, repeat.
I've heard comments about the floodplain and the central flood zone where residents would have to secure flood insurance. We already have enough flooding in our town that we have to deal with already. So it would be my recommendation that if we don't have that nailed down, that we come back another day when they do.
any other questions or comments from the general public? All right, at this time, I'm going to close the public comments section. Is there any other further questions and comments from the commission?
I'm just slightly confused, but the two lots that are in the flood zone, if that is not resolved, you will not build homes on those lots, is that correct?
Yeah, I would,
Correct, it's, once again, it's.
No, but I understand you're going through the, I'm doing the same thing where I live,
Right.
so I understand how that works.
yes,
But as long as it's not resolved to your satisfaction, you will not build homes in floodplain. Is that correct?
that's
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I have a question for the administration. Would you feel comfortable with an approval with a condition that those lots not be built until there's an approval from FEMA?
Right, and it sounds like they're comfortable with that condition as well. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm absolutely.
Any further discussion on that?
One other question.
Yes.
Thought I asked earlier, how many properties will be put into the flood zone? Can you tell us that? By changing the flood zone?
Well, once again, we're changing the flood zone based on a study, an unstudied area.
Understood.
So whatever drainage there, we're just telling FEMA, this is where, based on the topography and the H&H study, this is where it's going to be. We have a map that shows where the floodplain would be, that we show.
So how many properties will be put into the flood zone?
I don't know off the top of my head, it's, it's not. Outside subdivision. Correct. Right. That go to. So this is what was submitted. So everything that's hatched, will be considered floodplain. If FEMA agrees with us. So right now, what's in blue is what's zone A, which is undetermined. It's just the blue line is zone A. So when you look at the insurance rate map,
So this is the flood zone now.
as of right now, correct, the blue is. Everything that's hatched is what we believe will be the floodplain. The FEMA agrees with us.
So did anybody determine how many structures were going to be put into the flood zone that were not?
We just said, we submit the FEMA, we're just saying this is what the study. Because it's not studied area.
And none of this will change because of the fill you're putting here.
And this has no effect. Because it's within the ditch line. This hatch line is where.
But the fill you're putting in is not going
Will
to
not correct.
change the elevation and
Correct.
change this flood area.
Does not impact.
Thank you.
In the blue is the existing zone. What's hatched is what we submitted to FEMA based on a study.
We're not going to change existing elevations. And therefore, it's not affected. We have a normalized certificate.
So based on what he's presenting, it's actually a reduction in the floodplain.
It's a modification of it. It's getting a little bit larger here, a little bit smaller there. But the elevations are the elevations. And if what they're doing is not causing that flooding to rise, if there's no rising.
Yes.
Nothing we can do about that.
Right. Also, you have to remember is these are computer generated models. It's not like there was a historic event where someone drew paint on the ground saying this is where the flooding happened.
FEMA may come back and dispute that and modify that. What they submitted, or they may approve it as is, or they may reject it. That's up to FEMA.
Yeah, I mean, based on my experience, as long as there's sound engineering, and all the reputable company,
Yes, they are.
there should be no issue. So, okay. At this time, yes, go ahead.
Question I do have. What is the possibility that FEMA could come back and actually enlarge your flood area?
The government, I can't say yes or no, but usually they fall in line with the studies. I've never seen them increase it more than what we said. You realize Meadow Lake drains into this, and they have a lot of stormwater management west of Stony that picks up a lot of the water that runs through here, but I can't say for a fact that it won't change. It's a government agency. We feel confident in our city.
And Mr. Chairman, the question I would also have is the licorice ditch, who's going to be responsible for keeping that clear and flowing? Is that the city's responsibility? Or is that going to be the HOA's responsibility?
Yeah.
If the ditch is within the property limits of if the development on the HOA property, then the development will be responsible for using that one.
I'm looking at it, the way I look at it, it's right on the edge, so that's why I'm questioning. Because I've got, in my particular ward, I've got situations like this, and sometimes there's a disagreement as to who's responsible.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
keeping ditches clean is one of the things that we do a lot, and it's always problematic. I think we need to determine who's gonna do that, it's right on the edge. So that it becomes part of the approval.
Well, if I may speak,
Go ahead. I mean, I usually thought in the past that was handled administratively. I know City of North Ridgeville is probably one of the most aggressive communities in Northeast Ohio for cleaning ditches. They probably clean more ditches than any other city that I know. Right.
we're a tabletop.
But yeah, go ahead. If your developer wants to chime in.
Well, the issue there is the ditch is maybe halfway on their property and the other half to the south. So how do you maintain the ditch on somebody else's property?
Who's the other?
The property owner to the south. Or, yeah.
Yeah, with Mr. and Mrs. Stopper Stuper. Yeah.
So I mean, the ditch isn't defined just on their property, it meanders along the property.
I would ask engineering, do we have any history with this ditch?
It's a named ditch, it's on our ditch map, so prior to the lorry. we were responsible.
Is there any further discussion on that? All right, at this time, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to recommend approval with the condition that they receive, what is the language I'm looking for? The certificate,
A map revision.
a map revision from FEMA in order to build on lots 341 and 340.
I think the map revision is the ultimate one that we're looking for. Discussion.
That's not necessarily going to give you no rise certificate, which they say they have, they just haven't presented it.
Okay.
Okay, and the no rise certificate.
Okay, discussion. I think also I'd like to add to that motion that administratively the setbacks are reviewed to make sure that we meet code.
Okay.
Discussion. Okay. Okay, Madam Secretary, please call.
Wait, do we have a second?
I'm sorry, second, sorry.
Could you have that whole thing read? Pardon
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
me?
Yeah,
Could you have it?
for the record, yeah, just
For the
make sure we're all on the
record,
same
read it
page.
With the condition to receive the map revision from FEMA for lots 341 and 340. Also, the no rise certificate is received, and to add that administration make sure that the setback is reviewed to meet code.
We have a second. All right, Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Brotman.
Yes.
Swallow.
Yes.
Avens.
Yes.
Smollett.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Madam Secretary, second application.
Chipotle 34800 Center Ridge Road, North Ridgeville, Ohio 44039. PPN 0700161047. Applicant Cardinal Realty LLC 1305 Boardman Canfield Road, Suite 8, Youngstown, Ohio, 44512. Proposal consists of constructing a restaurant with a pickup window on a 0.88 acre lot to be split off from North Ridge Plaza on Center Ridge Road. Property is zone 2. Chief Building Official person's comments. Drive-through pickup window is not permitted use in B2 zoning. Has Economic Development Director approved this use? Will Planning Commission give consideration to this use as a like use in B2 zoning? Signage information and drawings was not provided. Sign permit may be approved if all else appears code compliant. For the engineer, and some site improvements will need to address water quality.
Okay, is there a member of the audience who represents this project?
We both do.
Okay, both of you want to come up and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, James Sabatine Jr. I'm the member of Cardinal Realty LLC, 1305 Boardman Canfield Road, Boardman, Ohio, Suite 8, 44512. And our site civil engineer is Brent Artman. He's here.
My name is Brent Hartman. My address is 13710 Cleveland Avenue Northwest, Uniontown, Ohio. I'm the engineer representing Cardinal Realty.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. As you can see, we're proposing a new Chipotle in the Marks Plaza. Kind of gets rid of the sea of asphalt that's out there, not really even being maintained very well now. This is a new prototype that you've probably seen Chipotle popping up in some of the other communities in town. This is a full service sit down restaurant. It's not a traditional drive-through. We've done a traffic impact study that we've submitted. It's a pickup only window that you have to pre-order. There's no order board there. It's pickup only, and you can also go inside and pick up as well. They've added this window, a lot of demand from mothers not wanting to unload their kids out of the car that are getting dinner. They have no trouble with the drive-through backing up like at a Chick-fil-A or Starbucks. There's probably 30 of them within 50 miles. We've just completed the one in Norwalk. We've done the one in Sheffield Village and Cuyahoga Falls, Liberty Township. Well landscaped, and basically here to answer any questions that you have on the project regarding the development, and same with Mr. Arvin.
Does the commission have any questions or comments?
Darren,
Go ahead.
I did catch the fact that you said this is going to be a full service restaurant.
You can sit down and eat. They are doing some digital kitchen only that you can't eat inside. The one we did in Cuyahoga Falls at 994 Graham Road, it's a digital kitchen. You cannot go inside. You can only, this is, the communities tend to like this one better because you have the option of eating inside or the patio or taking it through the pickup window.
So similar to the one that we have over there on Moraine Road.
Yeah, I would say it's similar. Their new design is quite nicer than the other designs they've had. It's a little bit more modern on the inside, but yeah, very similar.
Is there any other questions or comments? I guess I have, as far as, is this a lot split or how is it handled with the parcel? Or is this a land lease or what exactly?
This is a purchase. It would be replatted, and there would be a cross access easement between Cardinal Realty and the seller, which is the plaza owner. And Marks is also the Marks is approved this as well, and they like it. The grocery stores kind of see these as drivers to help their business bring people into the parcel. There's no additional curb cuts also that we're proposing on the road. This is all within the parking lot.
So as far as Cardinal, you guys are, the open space too would be part of this, or just that whole entire, everything being shown?
No, Chipotle didn't like how it looked.
Okay.
So they said we gotta pave it or we gotta put new grass there and let the plaza owner in the future do what they want. We won't own that, but as part of our deal on the purchase, we're gonna improve it, and I can kind of, Brent can kind of go through it with you too. But this would all be new curb. This is proposed, seed and full sun seed mix landscape with topsoil. Basically to make it a green space rather than kind of an unmaintained, old looking asphalt where Chipotle didn't like how it looked. And just basically to make it new and more vibrant, kind of dynamic looking rather than kind of old and stale.
You can see the future property outlined here. The future property line right here, and then the darker line that goes between the curb on the top, that'll be the future.
Then you guys did a count to make sure the remaining parking lot for the Marks Plaza is suitable for that.
We provided the parking calculation on the, after I had a meeting with the city in the last one, and there's 439 parking places. Today.
And how many were required?
Based upon the code, it says that there is a one space with 200 square feet of store area. I just assumed 20% of storage and 80,000. There's a total of 99,422. I assumed 20% of storage, and I calculated based on 80%. We need 400 spaces, and there's 439.
So on your drawing there, the drive lanes around the Chipotle, are those going to be curved off and separate from the rest of the parking lot, like on that
Yes, the only way
one side?
you can enter is that entrance right there. Everything else is going to be curved all the way.
Okay.
There will be a curve between the northerly parking that we're showing there and the existing plaza.
Thank you.
I'd like to add also that the dumpster will be fully screened with masonry enclosure and also gates.
Yeah, I provided them with details of that. You should have this in the package.
I don't recall seeing a sign. Is that a sign submittal going to be done at a later date?
We usually come back with the sign company for the signage package as a separate permit.
Okay.
I believe it is shown, the location is shown on the site plan for reference, but we haven't, they'll come in, the sign company will come in for the permit.
Okay.
Typically, they will comply with your signage code. Chipotle tends to look for a single stick Chipotle with basically a circle on it, so it's not a big, and that they also need to comply with your code. It could be ground mounted, whatever. The sign company will go through your code if we pass this step on the approval process, then they involve their sign company and they will submit separately. They'll submit your building sign package and they will, they made it work in Hudson, so I'm sure they can make it work here.
Would Chipotle consider a monument sign instead of a pole sign, even if it's not required?
They prefer the pole sign. They've done studies on it and it's more visible to people driving. It actually creates less people missing the store, and then they have to turn around. They tend to like to try to keep it within code. It's not a very big sign. It's very nice. They do LED, everything, all the trim pieces and the finish and returns are all finished. And it's just it basically just says Chipotle on it.
I doubt that they would approve a monument sign at this location, being the fact that we are so far below the road. That monument sign would not be visible from Center Ridge Road.
And they sit back, they're tucked in quite a bit. Marks didn't want it to be anywhere, near in front of their store.
Is there any other questions or comments from the commission? Is there any questions or comments from the administration?
Hi, yes, Mr. Chair. A restaurant is a permitted use in the B2 district. This is an unusual circumstance because this district does not permit drive-through facilities. But in discussion with the applicant, we discussed how it's unique because there's no order point. So the traffic flow is quite different. So, we're looking at this as a conditional accessory use rather than a similar use. So we printed out a copy of our conditional use chapter. This will be your first interaction with it. So I'd encourage the commission to look at the standards of approval for conditional uses as you would, even if it was full conditional use, not just conditional accessory use, and have a discussion around some of those factors. The applicant, I think, has done a good job providing the information we requested and came back and did make some changes to the site. Made some improvements to the building materials that I requested, so I really appreciate that. Provided some information about the dumpster enclosure, the patio. We had discussed, pedestrian path into this site because there's a somewhat close proximity to the high school, middle school campus, and with the high school potentially having open lunch periods, we thought this would be a hot destination for students to come and on bikes or by foot, and wanted to have a path in, but the grade and the slope from the sidewalk into the property makes that a bit of a challenge. So I appreciate them looking at that. I'm not sure it's feasible to do that and still meet ADA for the slope. But I do think they should put a bike rack somewhere around the door, so they'll probably kids that are coming around lunch.
We'll absolutely add a bike rack.
Chairman, knowing high schoolers, they're not gonna let a slope stop them.
No.
So I would still like to see some type of pavement there for.
The problem with there would require steps and slope, and there'd be some liability there on our part, so I don't think Chipotle wants to tie that in, especially in the winter time with steps coming down off the street. There is full access. Anybody that could go to Mark's, if they had to go to Mark's or something like that, they'd have access on the pavement. If they're riding their bikes, it'd probably be safer for them to come in the main point of entry from a slope standpoint as well.
What is the grade elevation, like 4 feet?
No, it's about 8 or 9 feet.
It isn't that much?
So yeah, once this building was plateaued out, right now, I know I have the topography, I'm just looking through, I'll never look at this. It's looked at about 6 feet now. Once we plateau this out for the level of the parking lot back there, it's gonna drop that building level down even further. And then once, we put the building in and we shut away from the building, as far as drainage goes, this is gonna end up being about 8 feet below the sidewalk elevation up here. This was all taken and sloped down into development as part of ODOT.
They eliminated the access, I think, when they widened the road. You could see it there. ODOT took away the access point.
For me to put in, a handicap accessible ramp down to there, I would need every 2.5 foot of drop. I need to have a landing, and it would be a switchback. I don't even think I have enough room to be able to do that much switchback from the sidewalk. I mean, I would be out into the right of way. I don't think it would fit. And it'd be a considerable expense to be able to do that. Now, putting stairs down there, that is a possibility, but then it becomes a liability issue.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments from the general public? Thanks, Bruce.
Dennis Booth, 6405 Denise Drive, North Ridgeville. I think it'd be a nice addition to our community. Seems like they've checked all the boxes. I don't have a big concern with the drive-through portion of it. There's 2 coffee shops that are drive-through only that could be within feet of this location. And going down east further, you have a drive-through at Pizza Hut. And of course, across the street, you have the other fast food restaurants that have that same feature. So again, looks like they're doing this right, and we welcome them to the community. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I add something? One of the things we did talk about was, obviously, if you can't order back in the lane, it has to be all digital. I provided a study from Chipotle that they have done on a couple different restaurants. The maximum they've ever had cars stacking in that lane is 5 to 7 cars in very urban areas that you see a lot of traffic. At the same time, if you pull up to that window and your order's not available, they provide pull ahead spaces for you to pull ahead and they bring your food out to you. Therefore, the pull ahead spaces are going to be located up here. But they'll provide pool and head spaces for you to come up here and they'll bring the food out to you so that it doesn't back up the line.
Thank you.
Another note to add too is this is Chipotle corporate that's gonna own and manage the actual restaurant operation. This is not a franchisee where we've developed some franchisees in the past, whether it be Popeye's Chicken or not. They don't maintain the property typically like a McDonald's would or a Chipotle would. They're corporately owned. It's not franchised or passed along. And I think you guys know, but this is a little bit, this is a very good site size wise for them. They have plenty of parking here. Some of their other sites they're doing, or they can't get a site that's 0.88 acres. And Brent will tell you, we fit them as small as 0.66, and they don't work as well. They don't have as many parks. They don't have the pool ahead spaces. They kind of view this site as an ideal size and layout.
Pretty much no prototype.
I guess I have one further question. Stormwater management, is it gonna be underground retention or?
Actually, we're reducing the impervious area on the property. We're creating a large amount of green space with the removal of the pavement. And on this particular 8.9 acres of rounded off, we're reducing the impervious area by 20%. Therefore, we're not increasing any stormwater flow on the property. We shouldn't be required to do stormwater management.
Did the previous parking lot have stormwater management?
Yeah, there's a pond at the back of the building. Actually, I think it's shown on sheet one on the overall plan.
Behind the plaza.
It's behind the plaza.
Okay.
So we'll actually be taking less water to that when we're done. Now, I understand that we're not need restricting the green space like I talked about, so like we talked about in the meeting. So therefore, we made sure that our particular site was reducing the impervious areas so that we didn't have to deal with the stormwater management aspect.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further questions or comments from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question, but it's going to be directed towards Mr. Booth. Is there any kind of flooding concerns in this area? Since it's.
The stormwater management at on the property, the old Hillbrand property, where the car wash is and the Scooters coffee shop is, has been addressed several years ago and is being enhanced today. I have not heard of any flooding issues from this area. I know at some point the pond behind the shopping center was not working as it should. My assumption is that it is not.
Some addressing.
Yeah. So no, I have not heard it.
Okay, thank you.
As far as maintenance on that retention, it just hasn't been maintained or?
Yeah, it had overgrown over the years. And so they had to go in and redo it. But this was several years ago,
Also, it's functioning now.
to my knowledge.
We have not had a recent inspection on that. So I'll be working.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the Chipotle restaurant.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Well, okay. And
Mr. Chair?
secretary, yes,
Can you specifically approve the conditional use, accessory use for the pickup window, please?
discussion, yes. So yeah, the motion will have a condition. Is that okay? How? Right, okay, that's fine.
Do you want me to restate the motion?
Sure.
Even though it wasn't my motion. A motion to accept the proposal and specifically the conditional use with the drive-through window. Noting that there is no order point on this proposal and that it's a pickup window only.
Secretary, please call roll.
Troutman,
Yes.
Swallow,
Yes.
Havens,
Yes.
Smollett,
Yes.
motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Last item is some new business. I think the Planning and Economic Development Director has some additional information for us.
A few announcements, they're good in the order. First, we're working on convening a master plan steering committee for our upcoming planning initiative. So this will be our 2023 North Ridgeville master plan. We have an open application process. There's a link on our city website to fill a Google form. The goal is to reach a little deeper to get folks that might not normally participate, and also we're collecting some demographics, so we're trying to ensure that the committee is representative of who Ridgeville is as a population group. So I think that document will need to be ultimately adopted by the planning commission, so I think it'll be important for planning commission to have some representation. So I would encourage those interested to fill out.
I believe the deadline's the 14th.
It is the 14th, yes. And second, council last night approved ordinance 6016-2022, which was the setback amendments to the B2 and B3 districts that was recommended by planning commission. So I won't go through what they were. You probably remember what they were, right? Okay, yeah, we do. So, and last but not least, other zoning amendments are in the works, namely our chapters related to parking, loading, commercial driveways and lighting. So trying to bring some of those chapters up to more modern standards and looking at some changes to clarify, especially we have a lot of drive-through uses recently, but we have no standards for queuing, for example, and we don't have parking space dimensions or drive aisle width specified. So these are all things that crop up pretty routinely with commercial projects where better guidance would be warranted. So I'd like to ask that planning commission will review some draft materials I'll be sending your way, and maybe add a work session component to your next meeting just to start the conversation, so that we can kind of start off next year with some of this. And that's it.
Questions or comments? Yeah. Is there any other new business brought to the board today? Hearing none, planning commission meeting for November 8th is adjourned. Good night, everybody.
See you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah.